Stories from Upanishads, retold by Arghya Goswami. Dear friends and listeners, before I start today's story, I would really want to request you all to spend some time and leave in your review comments and your ratings of my show. The reason behind this is very simple. I really work hard to get these stories for you. Your reviews and ratings will definitely motivate me and provide me with some vital information such as what my audience loves to hear or anything you want me to include or change or whatever. Today, I'll be telling you a story from Chaandogya Upanishad. It is featured in the 8th Khanda of the book, and it is about three well-versed scholars named Pravahana Jivala, Silaka Salavat, and Chaikitayana Dalbhya. This is a story which involves a deep curiosity amongst these three young men. Our Vedic rishis, sages and scholars always regarded experience or anubhava to be the paramount. Next, they would regard the scriptures or Shrutis, and lastly, they would regard the reasoning and logic as the most important. So, when these three scholars met, they were very curious to learn who had what experience of truth. They were all well versed in Udgitha and wanted to have a friendly discussion on it. Friends, if you remember, I have explained about Udgitha in the episode Story of Praana. I would really request the new listeners to listen to that first before listening to this story. Now, back to the story. Three scholars sat down under a shady banyan tree, kept their bags beside them. All of them were earnest students of the Vedas. They meditated on Om. The sound symbol of the ultimate reality or God. They followed meditation techniques as per Samaveda. They decided to exchange their experiences on Udgitha, which is the singing hymns of Samaveda and forms of Vedic sacrifices. After drinking a sip of water, wiping off the sweat from his forehead, Pravahana said, "Dear friends, I think you both must start telling your experiences first. Let me listen to it." Both Silaka and Chaikitayana agreed happily. They knew that Pravahana was destined to become a king later on. Silaka first questioned Chaikitayana. "May I ask you a question?" Chaikitayana nodded and said, "Yes, please, go ahead." Silaka smiled and asked, "What is the origin of the suman or Udgita?" Chaikitayana smiled and said, "Voice or swara. Naturally, without swara or voice, we cannot chant Samaveda, and Udgita is a part of this Veda." Then Silaka asked, "What is the origin of voice or swara?" Chaikitayana promptly said, "It is Praana or the vital breath, because when the vital breath or Praana stops functioning, one cannot speak, the voice becomes mute." Silaka immediately asked another question. "Obviously, without Praana, one cannot live. So may I ask you on what vital breath or Praana depend on?" Chaikitanya said, "We may say that all life for which the Praana or the vital breath is indispensable depends on the food." Pravahana was quietly listening to the conversation of his two friends and was making mental notes and silently judging them. Then Silaka asked, "What does food depends on?" Chaikitayana thought for a while and said, Upon water. Life itself is dependent on water." Silaka asked again, "Then tell me, what is the origin of water?" Chaikitayana said, "It is space or yonder, as water comes from the yonder and goes back to it. It falls to the earth from space in form of rainfall, fills in rivers and ponds, and then evaporates back as clouds to the space." Silaka thought for a second and asked, "Okay, tell me, what is the origin of yonder or space?" To this question, Chaikitanya said, "Let no man carry the summon beyond the world of Swarga or heaven or yonder. We recognize the summon in the world of Swarga or yonder, as summon is hailed as Swarga." These three friends were enlarging their kingdom of knowledge. They made a common attempt to share and spread knowledge as they followed a Vedic saying, "Do things together." They realized that they have gone as far as thought can reach. Being aware of the limitations of thought, Silaka told Chaikitayana, "O Chaikitayana, your summon is not firmly established. We cannot tell the origin of summon. If at this time anyone who know the origin of summon, your head shall surely fall off. I am afraid we cannot confine or delimit the absolute truth to any corner, remote or distant, of the cosmos or of the space. To the extent it is confined, it will stop being a symbol of universal truth, which is free from the limitations of time and space. Therefore, I believe we have to examine our fundamental views." Till now, Pravahana was watching and listening to his friends. He decided to intervene and said, "Both our views are partial and fragmentary. Silaka is keeping his feet on the earth and Chaikitayana has his head in the skies." Silaka now questioned Pravahana, "Then tell me, what is the origin of this world?" Pravahana said, "Space. As all these things are created from Akasha or space and return to the space, therefore Akasha is the supreme support." Then after a pause, Pravahana continued, "For comprehensive and complete knowledge, we require both. We need not interpret Akasha to mean the sky. It means space or ether. All objects in the space, but space itself is indivisible. It is inside and outside all objects, and what appears to divide space is also space." Then Silaka asked, "Then what is the truth?" Pravahana explained, "Let us then agree to say that the truth, the Brahman, is in all. We live, move, and have our being in Brahman, both here and hereafter. Wise men always seize this truth." At the end of the conversation, three friends got up, packed their belongings, and they were enriched with the knowledge and experiences from each other, as it was a rare spiritual retreat. After having clarified their ideas, the three friends knelt in common salutation to the Atman as Pranava. After this, the three friends greeted each other and parted their ways to their individual destinations. Before I wind up this episode, one important piece of information. Charles Johnston, renowned theosophist, calls this section to be law of correspondence, where the macrocosm of the universe is presented as microcosm within man, that all that is infinite and divine is within man, that man is the temple and God dwells inside him. Now, let me ask you 3 questions from this episode. What is the origin of food and why? Next question. What is the origin of prana or the vital breath? And the last question. What we must interpret Akasha as? Please send me the answers to these questions to my email address arghyathings@gmail.com. As said in my earlier episode, if you have any thoughts and want to discuss something on Upanishads and its learnings, please feel free to write to me and I will try my best to listen to your views. So, until then,
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
this podcast was created on Hubhopper Studio.